artist series here at Meg's Voice Studio. Today we are sitting down with one Tyler Symone. This conversation was so incredible for a few reasons. We talk about Tyler's vocal history, Tyler's vocal injury, and also the expectations that are put on her as a Black woman in this industry. Tyler is a force. She knows exactly who she is and exactly what she brings to the table, and somebody I have long admired in this industry. So I really hope you enjoy this episode of the Artist Series with Tyler Symone. Tyler Symone, welcome to the Artist Series.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my God, so happy to be here.
Yay. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I read that you're from the Midwest, yes?
I am. I'm from the Metro Detroit area. I lived there until I went off to school, and I went to school in Chicago, did undergrad there, and moved to New York pretty quickly after that. And, I graduated in 2019, did a true summer stock gig
Yeah.
right out of school. Came to the city just in time for, the good old pandemic, just to leave.
How
Uh,
lucky.
I don't know how lucky, very fortunate.
Yeah.
And came back in 2021 and have been here, ever since.
Good for you. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your vocal journey. When did you start singing? How has your journey been?
I believe I started voice lessons for the first time at probably around 9 years old. And that was with encouragement from choir directors. And I had been singing in choirs earlier, like pretty much as soon as they start introducing it in school, I was singing in choir. My mom sings, and so she was always singing around the house, and I was always singing with her. But she says, she remembers very vividly her voice going away the entire time she was pregnant with me. And she was like, this kid better be able to just like wail because she could not sing. And that's a big
Truly.
symptom of pregnancy. I mean, our voices even go
Yeah.
away for people with periods. So like,
Yeah.
so she was like, I could not sing from like
Wow.
1 month to the time that you were born and even a couple months after. And so then when I was, walking around the house singing as a kid, and she was like, all right, like she likes it, but it's not
Yes.
necessarily
How
like
little mermaid of you to take the
to take
voice.
her voice. But she said she was concerned because for a while it like I guess it really wasn't giving pitch. The first few years.
Wasn't
And she's
giving
like, I
pitch.
remember the first day that you came home and was singing in my bedroom that I was like, wait, this sounds good. Like
Oh.
this sounds really good. Okay. It was worth it. Cause she was like, it wouldn't have been worth it to lose my voice for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
If you
If it was never giving pitch.
never giving this.
I'm
I mean,
glad
she
it
never
came
pursued it
around.
professionally, but she just really, really wanted, she was
Yeah.
like, this kid must be soaking up something. So,
Oh.
but I've been in choirs from then, and I had a lot of voice teachers who were like, she is a true soprano, like super early. They're like, you have this natural vibrato. I was like, I don't know what vibrato is. I was like, oh, that like shaky thing my voice does.
Yeah.
Sure. And I was going to fine arts camps, which was, a lot of support from my parents in Michigan, Blue Lake Fine Arts, which is like, if you ever talk to people in the Midwest, they either like really know it or they
Yeah.
really don't.
Yeah.
But it's fine arts camp, and they do like acting and choirs and ballet training. And I was always there for choir, and they were like testing us
Yeah.
very early, like sight singing tests at like 12 to see what choir
Wow.
you were going to place into.
What
Um,
great training.
yeah, amazing training. So mostly choral training for the longest time. And I thought maybe I was going to want to go into some sort of classical music, maybe opera.
Mhm.
And then discovering musical theater in late middle school, high school, I was like, oh, wait, there are people who sing like how I sang in this field. And I was already acting. Like, that was the first thing I wanted to do at 5. As I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to be an actress. And I had been in acting lessons since then. So the voice came later.
Wow.
It was actually the acting first, and then maybe I'll be an opera singer. And then, wait, I can combine the two. This is
Yeah.
perfect.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's incredible. I was just listening to Michelle Obama's new podcast. I don't know if you've
Oh,
listened.
I
It's
haven't listened
called
yet.
In My
No.
Opinion. She does it with her brother. But they recently had Kiki Palmer on, and they were talking about
Love her.
how rare it is to want to be something when you grow up and then actually be that thing. And it's so
Absolutely.
incredible that you knew at 5, oh, I'm going to do this forever. And you had the support from your family, it sounds like, that kind of like honed your dreams
Yeah.
and
It's
supported your dreams.
it's really special being able to have that, especially you don't know what's normal and what's not normal until you start socializing and talking about that stuff with other people.
Yeah.
So even getting to school and my BFA program and hearing, oh,
Mhm.
my parents are giving me a year to to like kind of have fun, and then they'll see if they want me to stay, or they'll let me stay. Or hearing, people even in my high school programs who were like, I think I kind of want to major in musical theater, but I don't know if my parents are gonna let me. So like I'll do a major in, something in science and math, and then like minor in some acting classes or just take acting classes. And I mean, our negotiation was that I had to minor in something in the business world. So I did minor in public relations, but
Smart.
that was mostly my dad being like, something practical,
Yeah.
please. But they have always been like, I said I wanted to act. I was in acting lessons. I said I wanted to, a voice teacher or a choir director told them that I needed to be in voice lessons. And bet your bottom dollar, I was in those lessons within a few weeks. And they just really, got behind me and my sister when we could not be more different with both things we wanted to do. She's
Yeah.
a STEM person. Her degree is in cellular molecular biology and physiology. And
Like pretty close to musical theater.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I pra la la for a living. So it's very, very similar.
I love
But
it.
they, let me do the creative thing and
Yeah.
loved it. And still fly out for every show and are
That's
always,
awesome.
checking in and being like, what are you called back for? I know you don't want to talk about it, but what are you in for? What's happening?
Aw,
Yeah.
that's so nice. That is
Really
so
great.
nice to have that support, especially in such an insane business. So good for you. That's wonderful. Good for
Yeah.
your parents. Love them. Shout
Absolutely.
out.
And it's funny that you mentioned Kiki Palmer because my very first monologue that I remember learning, I'm sure there were others, was hers from Aquila and the Bee for the people that know.
For one of the greatest films, in my
Exactly.
opinion. Love Tequila and the Bee. So good. You should listen to that episode because she
I'm
talks
going to
about
now.
Aquila
Yeah,
and the
I'm gonna
Bee. It's
add it.
really
It'll be my train listen today.
for sure. And she's a Midwest girly too. She's from right
Mhm.
outside of Chicago. Oh my God, so
Yeah.
many similarities. Love it. Um,
Basically, that's Kiki Palmer.
basically. So you went to school for musical theater. Tell me about that experience for you. How did you like your BFA?
Oh, well, some people, I think at this point, have heard me speak very candidly on the internet
Mm,
about BFA experiences. And I think, as a Black woman, I automatically am going in with like a different experience because
yes.
they're, especially, going into school at 2015, this was like right when Buzz of Hamilton was really getting like hot.
Mhm,
So that kind of changed the landscape. But before then, I remember feeling like, oh my God, I'm not a belter.
mhm,
I was learning to in voice lessons because I kind of figured I had to, but I was a classical soprano. I came in and, wanted to do that and,
mhm.
sing Marion Prue and sing Julie Jordan and sing Christine. And my professors had no idea what to do with it. It was almost like they thought it was cute. And I had some who were very, very supportive, and
Yeah,
what two, three of them to this day are like in my life, and
yeah,
we chat. And one of them is my mentor, and she's a music director, and she's fantastic. But so there were definitely some people who were, I feel, wanted to push me more into a box because they were like, this is where you're going to be cast. And you have to be able to give us South sassy belter diva. And that was not me, something I can do, but not like, not what I wanted to do at the time,
mhm,
really.
mhm.
And so I kind of made it my own experience. I worked really hard. I was kind of like, I will be successful regardless because I want it that bad. And I was up at 2 a.m. before classes, trying new material and bringing new stuff in because I wanted the feedback. Like I'm also a
Yeah,
person who really likes to learn. So like I wanted the notes. I wanted real collaboration. And I did get that at some points, but I also got pushback of, well, why aren't you doing this? And how can we be,
yeah.
how do we get you out of this box? How do we make you more fiery? And how do we make you more, gritty and just whatever other coded language they had for what they wanted me to be at the time. And I really just held true to what I did well while learning
Mhm,
other skills and while,
mhm.
because I wanted to learn how to mix belt. I wanted to be able to be in the new musical theater landscape that like, the sound that Legally Blonde kind of put into the world.
Right.
And I wanted to be able to play Dolores and, some of these more vocally challenging parts on that side of the spectrum. But I wanted to be able to also be appreciated for what I was already bringing to the table and what I
Yes.
felt I was naturally good at. And I really credit honestly working outside of school at the time that I was in college to getting that sort of validation and even having parents who were like, you have been, you've taken all you've sung throughout Europe, like in choir and like and traveled in choirs and sing soprano in like chapels in Italy. Like what do you mean that they're making you feel like you can't do that? And I was like, well, this is who I am. So like I had a really, really strong support system. And like I said, those professors who had my back and let me sing. What did I sing for my senior showcase? Something from like Friorello. Like, let me do that instead
Yes.
of pushing me to do
Fit
home,
a trope.
which like love home, but
Yeah.
like, let me advertise myself correctly. And I feel like that has allowed me in my career to flourish because I don't feel like I'm trying to be what other people want me to be or going in. Like I'm a person who like if there's not a role for me in a show, I'm not going in.
Yeah.
And if there's a role for me in a show and I don't think they're going to really consider me for it, I'm still going in. And I'm not going to
Yes.
sing for the part that I think you want to see me in. I'm going to sing for the part that I want and you can choose whether to engage or not, but I'm not going to bend myself to this mold of what we want, Black women
Yes.
to be in the industry.
Yes, and I so appreciate you being so vocal about that on social media. You recently had a post about Audra and the last five
Oh,
years
girl.
and the industry wanting black women to fit into a trope, and it's so important that it's spoken about. And I appreciate you speaking about that. And I appreciate you sharing that here. It's so important to
Yeah.
see black women in the dynamic way that they are.
Yeah, I think especially at the time, I didn't have anyone besides the 4, 5 other people of color in my program to talk to about it. And I wished that there was more conversation and I wished that it didn't turn into, well, you are, black and you can bell and you're still like an ingenue type. So obviously you'll just play Eliza and Hamilton and like that's the next thing for you. And great. Well, listen, well, I'm ready.
Yes.
But I was like, I can do so much more than that. And I hated that it would speaking of Audrey McDonald, that it seemed like she was the exception and there could never be another. And then with
Yes.
Mae Benton, like it was like she was the exception and there could never be another. It was like her, Nikki Renee Daniels, and Audra.
Mhm.
And I was like, there are women who look like me who are doing this. And
Yes.
they are exceptional and they are getting awards and they are getting so much praise. And so I don't know how we're still saying like I can't, oh, they were the exception. And I'm like, but I have it and I'm working 20 times as hard as my as my
Yes.
classmates to
Yes.
put myself out there. So I kind of when graduating, I was like, if I do anything, I will speak about this
Yes.
because I don't want anyone else to feel alone in that struggle or feel like that these people who, respect to some of these programs haven't worked in the industry in 15, 20, 30 years
Yeah.
are the real landscape. And yeah, there's going to be challenges, but as long as you push forward with what you want to do and what you know you're good at, and you keep practicing and training and putting that work out there, it will, it'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Because like I don't go, like I was like, I don't go in for productions of Music Man and not audition with Marion material. That'd be
Right.
crazy to
Yes.
be like to not go in and say, hi, this is what I do well. You
Yes.
can see my part or you cannot,
Yes.
you know.
I love it. Yes. Good for you. You are so dynamic vocally, and your resume really speaks to that. And you've played some really intense roles. One of them specifically, Dolores Van Cartier, is crazy, a crazy hard role.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and then you covered Doralee. You've done a lot, Marion. I wonder how you have cared for your voice throughout the years. I wonder if there have been any moments of like, oh, she's not working the way I am used to her working. Any sort of setbacks? Tell me about
Oh yeah. So Dolores is some of the most fun I've ever had on stage. I am like itching to do it at some point, and I'm like, Black Don't Crack. I'll have plenty of years to play it.
that.
So again, I was definitely young when I did it the first time, so I'm like, it'll come back in some way. But that was actually when I experienced my first vocal injury, and it was due to stress and allergies of the environment that I was in. I had a dear friend pass away while I was on that contract, and so my body was reacting in all sorts of ways. And those of us who have anxiety disorders know that like it's not always like up to us.
Yeah.
And I was having allergies due to like I was working at a theater like way out in the country, hay, grass, all the
Mhm.
50 different kinds of pollen and all this stuff. And dealing with that, singing through that, singing through whatever trauma and like PTSD my body was going through from losing a friend on this contract. And I was not able to keep food down. I was not able to eat and like sustain properly, and my voice was really suffering through that, and I also had no cover, and so I could not miss shows. And I was doing three other shows in this rep season, so I was doing four productions,
Taylor.
also singing Dolores, also singing an urchin in Little Shop. So, um, and I was like, my voice is going. I wasn't allowed to call out of shows. I was throwing up in between
Yeah.
scenes and still coming back on stage and singing.
Oh.
And just due to like my body being just in shambles and
Mhm.
trying to see like what was going on with me. And eventually I went and got scoped, and I had a note on my right vocal fold, and they were like, you have to, be quiet for 30 days. Like it doesn't, you have to just not speak,
Ugh.
thing. You need to take a break. You need to like, my doctors were like, we're gonna send you new anxiety medication. Like it was the whole thing. And it really forced me to sit down. Like, it's that thing of like, if you don't rest, your body will force you to rest.
Yes.
Um, and so that experience was cut short a bit. It's like, oh, look back, and I have such like grace for that girl because I was like 22 and being like,
Right.
I can't, I can't let anyone down, and they asked me to play this part, and like what a fantastic opportunity, and this and that, and like, and I have to power through it. And I was like, oh my God, like she was going through so much, and her body was just falling apart, and I was still like, gotta sing through it, have to, get my clean riffs on Fabulous Baby, and like there was no way.
Mhm.
Um, and so like through that, I definitely learned to like listen to my body more. Like if I know we rescheduled this because I was like, oh, I'm a little sick. Like I don't sing if my cords are swollen,
Yes.
or if I can feel I'm not in good health. And I have a very vigorous like warm up routine and cool down routine, and I just take care of myself overall. And I've never experienced anything like that again, but I definitely think there's a stigma around vocal injuries. Like you're just a bad singer, or you were screaming, or you were yelling, or you were doing, whatever. And like, I think originally they called them teacher's nodes, right? Like
Yes.
people who are speaking a lot. It's like speaking is the most like damaging thing you can do in your voice. So it's like, well, it wasn't necessarily the singing, but it was the singing and the speaking and the stress and the crying and
Yeah.
and the acid in
The
my
vomit.
throat.
Yes.
Yeah, the vomiting. Like it was so many factors. And I sat there and was like, I'm just a subpar performer. And that's why this happened to me. And it was, such drama. But like again, that's why when people are like, oh, I just don't have it today, or like I feel, I need to sing around this. I'm like, to do what you need to do, because at the end of the
Yes.
day, like you want longevity in this career. Like I want to be 65 and offer only. And so that can only happen if I'm taking care of my body, if I'm taking care of my voice, if I'm able to like, you have to push through sometimes. And I love Mary Kate Morrissey's content about like,
Yes.
okay, this note is a little crunchy today. Like, how am I gonna place it instead? What am I gonna do instead to like still be able to perform, but not necessarily hurt myself or cause any damage, and like give myself true rest? I think that that is really important as well, to learn how to power through, but it's also really important to know when to just say, I can't today.
Yes.
And
It
that's
is,
okay.
yeah, the most important thing to learn is vocal boundaries. And I think it's not something, at least in my upbringing in my voice training in college, I was never really taught to set those boundaries. It was,
No.
that's showbiz, babe. Show up, you do the work, and you move on. And that, at least for me, as somebody who also had a vocal injury, that was like the most damaging thing mentally to take on top of the physical hardship. And I've talked about it at great lengths on social media that My vocal journey, although it was so tumultuous, it was one of the greatest things that has ever happened to me because it taught me the hard way how to set those boundaries and how to get in touch with my body, how to know my body and know my instrument to its fullest extent. It's so important. And unfortunately, people like you and me had to have a really hard time learning that lesson.
Yeah.
And
But it's
especially,
not taught. It's like how they tell, what do they tell you with kids? Like if they say they're scared, then you don't say, "Oh, no, you're not scared. It's not scary." Like you teach if you say like, "Oh, I'm feeling tired and I don't think I have to." No, you have it. You're fine. You're gonna be okay. It's teaching you to not honor your feelings. And then
yes.
that's teaching you to not trust your gut instincts, your intuition. Like
Mhm.
you I feel like, yes, there should be a how can we work around this? Where are you feeling the tension? What notes? Do you need an extra long warm up today? Do you need some steam? Do you need a nebulizer? Do you just need to like go, do you need a couple more hours of sleep? Like, sure, there can be solutions, but I think this like almost gaslighting that we're taught to do with ourselves is
Yes.
it detrimental in the long run.
Yes. And I think a lot of our teachers, we're around the same age, in
Mhm.
the older generation, don't really have that sort of empathy or that same mindset, and so they do have the show must go on mindset. They don't respect the boundaries as much. That's generalizing, I know, but at least in my experience, it's not as easy to have that conversation with people of an older generation. So I love that it's now talked about more now. And Mary Kate Marcy, the queen of the vocal health now, I love. But it's creating that transparency and talking about this. This is a normal, relatively normal thing that we singers have to go through. We're athletes. Athletes can have injuries. We too
Yes.
can have injuries, and it's okay to take time away. We'll still be hired. We'll still, the world does still turn without us, but we can enter right back in whenever we're ready to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ugh, I'm so thankful for you sharing your vocal experience.
Oh,
That's
thank you. You too.
so
It's just
helpful.
something that I was like, don't need to be ashamed of this. This happens to
No,
people. And it doesn't define your entire life. Like,
no.
and really, if there's someone who's like, oh, well, we heard that she had an injury at some point, and we don't want to work with her. Great, I don't want to work with you.
Yeah,
Like,
bye.
there's no grace. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And what would you like to sing?
I'll do Chain of Love from the Grass Harp. It's a song I've been singing since college, but as we were talking about voices
Yeah.
changing through your cycle, it's something that like I'm probably singing, during heavy audition season a few times a week, and every week it may sound a little different just based off placement, based off of like what's happening in our bodies. And I know, people with periods know that. And
Yes.
I think that's something that Julie Benko brought a lot of awareness to
Yes.
as well, which I have appreciated because there was a time where I was like, why is it that if this is not sitting where it's sitting, like it sounds good, but I'm like, I feel like my registers have changed, and
Absolutely.
I'm definitely one of those people that you can tell because I'm like my voice is lower right now,
Yeah.
and I can still access the notes, but maybe sometimes it's a longer warm up or sometimes it
Yeah.
just sounds a little different, and I think that at least having that knowledge has made me not freak out and be like, because
Yes.
once you've had an injury, you're like,
Right.
I have
Everything that's
something,
not normal.
my
Yeah.
gift, yes, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
you're just a person with ovaries.
That's all. That is
That's
all.
it.
Yeah. So that brings on a pretty basic level of vocal swelling. It's all within the realm of normal. If you're experiencing any cramping, you might notice that it's undermining your breath support. So that's also something to keep in mind when you are menstruating. We definitely want to be in touch with that breath support. Yeah. When you're ready, roll your shoulders back, chest nice and tall, feet hip width apart. Make sure your pelvis is tucked, the booty is not popped. And we're just gonna do a very simple lip trills, straw phonation, tongue trills, whatever SOVT of your choosing. Just on a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready? Good
Air.
morning. You got it. Beautiful. what is this song for you? Is this head dominant? Where does this fall for you?
It is It is head dominant.
Okay.
It's interesting because someone said to me during the Music Man, they were like, the way you navigate your registers is so interesting to me. And I was like, is that a compliment? It was from the castmate, and they were like, no, 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 I'm being serious. Like it is a compliment. And I think it's because I am not. I think the way I bring my chest voice into legit sometimes.
Okay.
I think or the way that I do it is interesting, but I'm like, well, it's all it. I my mentor, who I did a lot of my voice study with in my last few years of college, she's like, it's all one voice. It's
Yeah,
all. It's pretty much all a mix all the time, unless you're down here. So
that's so
like
true.
the way that I'm not. I'm never concerned with like bringing my top down. I'm always like, how can I bring everything up? And
Love that
so
power.
I guess when in these more speaky sections of these like, legit songs,
Yeah.
I'm not scared to be in my chest voice. And I think that just like maybe in people's ears sometimes it's like, oh, like, wow, okay. And so but it brought a lot of awareness to me, the fact that multiple people commented on it. And I was
I
like,
love that.
I had to go back and listen to myself, and I was like, oh, I guess like that must be what they're talking about. Like, but I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing gymnastics um to jump through my registers. This is just how I approach a song.
If it's easy for you, nothing else
Yeah,
matters.
it kind of does remind me of Audra McDonald in that way when you hear
Yeah.
her,
Yeah.
not me saying I remind myself of Audra McDonald.
She's Audra.
But the way that you hear when she's not like scared to bring that chest voice
Yeah.
or that lower voice
Yeah.
into a legit song, and I think
Yeah.
it just creates interesting dynamics. So
Yeah. A lot of good
this is
texture.
one of those where I think you'll get a little bit of both.
Let's sing oh. So that's up on land on O for 3 counts, and mess up, and back down. I was gonna say if you mess up. I truly don't care if you mix the vowels up. Do what feels good for you. Ready and good. Beautiful. On that descent, I wonder if we can have a little less jaw movement at the change of pitch. Ready and last one. I love the way you're navigating your registers. I think it sounds really good and just full the whole way through. It just
Thank
sounds
you.
really connected. Good. Let's do one more. The melodic pattern is 1 3 3 5 octave. Little suspension. 5 3 1. V E V E V A. Ready and yeah. Can we hold that top? V A. Nice. Beautiful. On the ah, can we lay the tongue on top of the bottom teeth? A little more clarity. this song.
I can't hold back my feelings and keep them safely sealed. Love bursts out of me and flies like a bird in a sunflower field. If love is a chain of love, as nature is a chain of life, a chain that will always endure, then I'll always be in love. I'll always be in love, I'm sure.
Exactly.
I got to hear my own music there.
That was beautiful. How did that feel?
Oh, pretty good. Except for I was like, oh, I feel where in my mix I didn't necessarily warm up fully this morning.
Yeah, so that's okay. That's okay. Love this. I love the match of weight in both registers. I think that you do that and really beautifully, and I think that's probably what assists you most in your changing of your registers. That's why it feels so seamless for you. So well done. I want to talk about your breathing.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Tell me about breath support for you. Tell me your relationship. Does that feel like an easy task?
Yeah. I had all the old school voice teachers who were like, breathe low, breathe like, you know, pretty much as low as you can go. I even take that into costume fittings with me. If the costume is too tight or on my stomach, like I pooch out my stomach in fittings.
Yes.
Instead of like which is God, such a healing thing. You know, in my early 20s and like teens, I was like, suck in. You want to look as good as possible. You want to look small, but I literally like pooch out my stomach in fittings because I don't want to not be able to breathe if I have a large meal before a show. If I need to bring in a lot of air, like all the whole complex with that is gone. So like I breathe, I do think very low, and my belly is very full of breath typically. And connecting, breath to these lyrical songs. So yeah, I feel like I'm not a very shallow breather unless, the song calls for something pattery, something faster, something like that.
Yeah, good, beautiful. I want to try this cut again, and I want the forefront of your thinking to be on silent inhalations. And I wonder what difference that would make in the breath support, in how much air we're taking in and how much air we're letting out.
Okay.
Can we try that from the top?
Yeah. I can't hold back my feelings and keep them safely sealed. Love bursts out of me and flies like a bird in a sunflower field. If love is a chain of love, as nature is a chain of life, a chain that will always endure, then I'll always be in love. I'll always be in love, I'm sure.
Oh, good. What difference did that make, if anything?
Ooh, I realized I'm a loud breather because I was actively thinking about that. Like I am a person. So that was actually a little bit difficult for me to think like, oh, make these breaths quieter.
For sure.
Which I'm not sure how pleasing that's been when a mic has been in my head.
That's okay. It's okay. That was great. And to me, the outsider, it sounded like we were a little bit more on voice when we had the silent inhalation. So that silent breath is really helpful to isolate the breath down low, but it's also helpful to reset the neck and larynx muscles. When we have an audible inhalation, the vocal folds are working and the larynx is raising. In a song like this, where we have a more classical sound, that larynx is going to want to be either neutral or dropped one position.
Okay.
And so anytime we have that audible inhalation, we're taking the larynx out of the place that you had just set in the phonating.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think it also seemed like we had more control over how much air we were taking in. First time through, we were taking in huge breaths for pretty short phrases, and it
Mm-hmm.
seemed to me like we were having to exhale before we inhale again.
Mm.
That's a ton of work. This
Yeah.
song is already work. We don't need to add anything else to our plate. I wonder if we can focus on taking in just as much air as we need for the phrase.
Yeah.
Make
I
sense?
also wonder too if that is any sort of autopilot, because the last few years I've spent a lot of time performing at altitude, and running out of breath
Yeah,
is
because you were in Colorado for a while.
Colorado and Salt Lake City. I've
Yeah.
been like between the two several times in the last from 2022 to now.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
I'm
I
sure.
wonder too, and it's, it's a lot harder to breathe up there.
Yeah.
Like, you feel like you're taking a big breath and you're still running out of air at the end of these notes, and
Oh,
holding the end of My Way Night out for 8 bars at the end, like it was like so I
yeah.
wonder too if I've picked up any habits from that are now at sea level, like, oh, like, why am I don't need to work as
Not
hard.
neat. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That is probably pretty accurate. I wonder, when you were on those contracts in higher altitude, did you notice any difference in your tone quality? Was it breathier? Was it more full?
Not, I don't know if a difference in my tone quality, but definitely a difference in the way that my body is working. Because, I mean,
It's way harder.
a few steps on stage, like you're like,
Yeah.
because the air is so thin. Grand Lake, Colorado is 8,500 feet up,
Yeah.
in the Rockies. So like you're out of breath going up the stairs. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, like, okay, how much energy do I need to like spin out of this turn and then sing a note, or
Yeah.
whatever is definitely always like in the back of my mind. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's changed. I'm not sure if it changed my vocal quality at all. I would have to go back and watch some tapes and
Yeah.
see.
That's
But
interesting.
I definitely know it changes the way that I breathe, or thinking about, like, okay, how am I gonna make it through this phrase with as little breath as possible and not make it sound like I'm singing at 8,500 feet up,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Did you have a lot of rehearsal time to be able to kind of like adjust to the altitude, or was it
You
the same like
so
2 weeks?
if we started rehearsal on June 3rd, which is my birthday, for a
Happy
music camp.
birthday.
I we opened June 12th
So no.
or 14th. So
So it's
no,
that
but
no.
I feel like I have that's a theater I've been working at off and on since I was 21. So I've got like the added ability of being able to acclimate quickly, and then
Yeah.
it makes even Salt Lake City like not as hard. There, we have about 4 or 3.5 weeks before
Okay.
we're on stage. But no, yeah, not nearly as time to acclimate,
Yeah.
but that goes into my routine, because then I'm at the gym and I'm humming on the Stairmaster, and I'm actively every day doing exercise, while and even leading up to knowing that I'm going to do something like that.
Yeah.
I was doing like an hour on the Stairmaster, and like in singing songs or humming to myself or doing lip trills and whatever,
Yeah.
prior to, just to like almost train to be able to sing all of these like very legato songs
Yeah.
at this altitude. And then also our music director, being a true collaborator, was like, we can speed some of these tempos, like we can take it, like we're up here, girl, like it's okay. And I was like, I'm
So
actually,
nice.
I'll let you know when I need it, but
Yeah.
I practice to be able to do it. And
Okay, athlete.
what we said, we're athletes.
Yes, we are.
um but I wonder too, like, the amount of, I think it's like almost 6 months of the last 2 years I've been at altitude and singing at
Yeah.
altitude, and wonder what habits I've picked up that I haven't noticed at sea level. So it's
Yeah.
like amazing to me that you pointed that out.
Yeah. So I definitely think that is something that you can be working on in your practicing to just
Absolutely.
do less. We don't need
Yeah.
as much work to happen, yeah? Okay, Tyler, I appreciate your time here so much, and your conversation and all that you have shared. I do appreciate it so much. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate you for having me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Um,